Well, welcome back to Once Upon a Page. We hope that you had a wonderful Christmas and a happy New Year and got to spend some time with your family and your friends and hopefully had some time to read and relax. Did you guys get to relax any? Some, a little bit?
Maybe a few days.
A few days? That's always good. Well, today we are talking about research in our writing. Is it something that every genre needs to do? Because I know we always hear historical writers have to do a ton of research. So should every genre have to research? What do you guys think?
You're in fantasy. Do you have to research? I mean, you're creating the world. You're setting up the rules. You're setting up the laws of nature. You're setting up the language and the clothes and everything else. Do you have to research to do that?
To an extent you do. Depends on what type of world building you're doing. If you're creating your own world, then yeah, you get to kind of set what you want. But a lot of authors like to research legends and to see where, like, especially if you're doing like a book about dragons or, something like that, you want to kind of go back and see what other lore has said and kind of get ideas based off of that. For mine is an urban fantasy, which means it's set in our world. So I don't have to do as ton of research like other people do. But yeah, there's a little bit that goes into it.
I feel like you had to research the different areas that you put your portals, right?
Yes. I actually, all the locations in mine is places that I've been or know really well. They're all special to me in different ways. And my husband and I have had a lot of fun going and taking my books and placing them where the portal would be and take a picture of it.
Cool.
Yeah, so we've had a ton of fun.
St. Louis.
Yes, at the Arch. Yep.
Very cool.
So we had a ton of fun doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What about you with contemporary? Have you done a lot of research?
I've done some research, and sometimes it was things that I didn't even think about having to do. But like, I made one of my characters she worked in a pediatrician's office, and she was a receptionist because I knew I could handle that lingo a lot better than like if she were back in the back. But she was mentioning one of the tools that the pediatrician used, and I had to look up the actual name of that because I couldn't remember what it was called. It was like an otoscope or something that they used to look in your ears with. So just little things that you don't think about, or maybe like how many steps up to a certain building if they're going somewhere. Right now I'm doing some research on Dallas because I've been to Dallas and I've done things in Dallas, but it's been a while, and I want to refresh my memory and see if there's something even better for my characters to be able to do since they're going to be stuck there on their honeymoon.
And I think readers appreciate that too, when you take the time to make sure that it's correct, especially in our time. Like if it is a book that's in the present, they like to see those kinds of things, I think.
Well, like mine were set where I live, so I didn't have to do a lot of research in that. I researched things like when they were choosing wedding dresses or things like that. I would find pictures of the wedding dress or pictures of the decorations and things, and I always post them on Pinterest in case any readers want to come and look and kind of get a feel for the book
like
that way.
Boards and stuff.
But the one that I finished during NaNoWriMo was about a cake truck owner, and so I needed to know, okay, how do these work? How much are they? And it was about a reality television show that takes place in California. I've never been to California, so I had to research places and find homes, and you would not believe the number of homes you can look up online and actually take 3D tours. So I pulled up the website, and as I'm describing this home, I'm going through the 3D tour on the website. And that was kind of neat because, it gives you a really good picture to work with. But I'm finding currently I'm writing one that's based in the 20s. It's still in my area, home area, but long before I was born. So
She wants to make that clear.
Perfectly clear.
guess you can tell by looking at her.
But doing that, it's a completely different kind of research because I'm
Yes.
having to research language. I'm having to research
Like
vehicles. I'm
And the
having to
clothing.
research clothing. What are the prominent ideas? What are the things that are happening that maybe impacted them? Things like that. And it's just completely
that's why
different kind
historical
of research.
kind of
Scares.
me.
Yes.
I'm like, don't really want to touch that.
Yeah.
And I'm not a person who's like totally enthralled with history.
Uh,
So for
yeah.
me, it's been
Has it been
interesting
hard?
to get in there, but I want to have the right feel to it.
Mhm.
I don't want them reading a contemporary book that everybody's just moved to the 1920s. I want it to feel
Authentic.
like the 20s. Yes,
Yeah.
be authentic. So.
Yes. So I have actually written a historical romance novel. My muse hit me actually about the time I got pregnant with my son. It was before I knew I was pregnant with him, but I was just like hit so hard I had to get up out of the bed and write down the first chapter. And I literally wrote that novel in my first trimester because it was just there in my head, set in the 1800s in Northeast Texas. And
So why are we just now hearing about this?
Yeah.
because I write contemporary romance, so it's like really hard for me to do anything with a historical
Right.
romance. It's
I
just sort of
know.
sitting on the back burner. I was told it needed some work.
I even
so.
told you about my like kid and chicklet books on my computer. Come on.
Sorry, I'll
We
send
haven't
it to
seen
you.
those either, though.
I I pulled them up the
You
other
just
day.
outed yourself on that.
I know. I pulled them up the other day and I was reading through them and I'm like, ooh, I can tell I wrote that like 5 years ago. So
Right, well, I
don't
have
need
not-
to be polished before
Yeah,
I send
I
anything.
haven't touched this one in a while. My son is 3.5 now. But I had to research things like chickens and how they act after a tornado.
Can you find?
Well, I asked
What do you
somebody
type
who
in?
owned
Hey,
chickens.
Google, what happens to a chicken
I-
after?
I asked somebody who had chickens. So it's like you think about using things like Google and looking
I
it
just
up
have
in
to
books.
get back to this.
So we gotta talk about this. How
So
do
you
they act?
found a
Okay,
chicken
so
farmer
chicken.
that actually not only had the chickens but also had the tornado, so that you got the information.
He lived in Texas. What can I say? No, they quit laying for a while because they're traumatized.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
Poor
so
thing.
I had to find
Sad.
out like how long it would take for them to start laying eggs again. And you know, they didn't have refrigerators back then, so I was like, okay, well, how did they store their food? How would they have preserved it? Because even though I can vegetables from my garden every summer, it wouldn't be the same way they did it because they didn't have an electric stove, which I'm so glad I don't live in the
But they still
1800s.
canned.
Because
I
they
would
did
not
still
have
can, but they
survived.
used
Probably a
things
lot
like
less safe canning.
well, they used like wax to seal the tops of the jars instead of the metal things that we use, and so it was really interesting. And I also for that one had some German characters, so I looked up how to make strudel, which evidently takes a long time, and you have to knead it for a long time to get it the right texture, and I didn't know that.
Didn't either.
So.
I've not made strudel.
Yeah,
either.
I
it
don't
was
know
really
that I need
interesting,
strudel,
but we'll see if that book ever sees the light of day. I don't know.
Well, now we're all intrigued.
Yes,
We
we
wanna
want to
know.
read this chicken book.
It's not a book
Is that
about
the name of
chicken.
it? The chicken
no.
book?
The
We
name
just
of
gave
it
you your
is
title.
the name of it is The Accidental Bride, because he accidentally marries the wrong girl.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
I love bride books like
I
that.
do too.
Yeah.
I do. I
I'm a
really like
sucker
that.
for him.
Yeah.
What are some of the unique research methods that you have
Besides asking farmers.
besides asking
Okay.
chicken farmers for information?
That's a good question.
Like I have a writer friend that really wants to go to MurderCon. Not that she writes suspense, but you know, any time that you might bring death in, or have to have the law enforcement be a part of the story, even if it's a fringe it could help because MurderCon is one of those things you go to, and
I want to go to that just because I think it'd be awesome.
It would be, you know, it's like
Just laughing at me.
CSI for
I
writers.
think it'd be so great.
It would.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
they
would
talk,
participate in a
they
murder.
talk blood
No.
spatter. They
No,
talk.
yeah.
They talk all that stuff.
Yeah.
That,
I learned all that from
Procedures.
CSI, so I'm good.
well, you know, which one?
Just kidding. All of them.
Because New York.
I watched all of
We're a
them.
whole lot smarter than
Yeah.
them.
No, I had a friend who actually did several classes with the police
Mhm.
in her town to find out things like that. Like she got to
Cool.
follow them for a
Mhm.
couple days and ride
That's
on the
sweet.
car, and I'm like, you're a lot braver than I am.
So job shadowing.
Yes.
So
That's cool.
Have you guys ever job shadowed to find out?
I haven't. No.
I have not. I usually give my characters jobs that I've had in the past, or jobs that I know how they work because I've applied for them in the past.
Well, mine are teenagers, so they don't really have like a
Yeah.
career or profession like that. But
Did you
You
go
made
back
up
to
their
high
jobs.
school?
no, but I have lots of experience working with teens. And now
No.
I'm substitute teaching, so that's
Yeah, that helps.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
For my bakery truck one, there's not a lot of food trucks where I live. There are a few, but I've not really seen them. But
Yeah.
I've heard they're there. And
She needs to go find them.
so we were going to go up to, my husband and I were going to make the trip to St. Louis, which is about 2 hours away, and go eat at one called Chuck Norris.
Nice.
Or Truck Norris, sorry.
Yeah.
Truck Norris after Chuck Norris.
Nice.
And we got up there and it had great reviews and all of this, and we get up there and we're spending the day, and we actually stayed the night. We're like, let's make a weekend of it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I can go and I can ask some questions like, okay, winters in St. Louis could be cold. What do you do? Do you stay out here in your truck through the winter, or do you have like, oh, we only work from this month to this month, you know, things like that just I kind of had on my mind, and everything, and really looking forward to it, and they happened to be closed that weekend.
Oh, no.
So that was
man.
a
That's
failing
bummer.
research method. Always make sure your restaurant is open before you go to research it. Yes.
Oh man.
There's an important note for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we can just take a road trip.
That sounds like fun. Sounds good.
And what's the weirdest thing in your search history that you've ever, like, you're like, oh, I really hope nobody ever looks at my search history?
Well, I mean, it's not really like I hope no one looks, but I've researched, you know, ancient weapons, you know, and like to get ideas for things. If someone's in a fight, will this much blood come out? You know, like, you know, like I want to know, like, is it realistic?
Wow. How long does
you
it
know,
take to kill somebody
Yeah.
by slicing their throat?
gotta have a little. Well, all my books
Oh.
have fighting in them, so
They do.
Yeah.
you know. Of course, my husband helped me because he was in the military, so he is my weapons.
Her main research.
Yes.
source.
I'm like, I give it to him, and I'm like, is this correct? He goes, no.
No.
And he like shakes his head, and then sometimes just like, yeah, good job. So like, I'll send him random text while he's at work. I'm like, so if someone fell, you know, would this happen? And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm writing. I need to know, is this
Nice.
authentic? So
I'm just curious.
Just
That's
curious.
all. How much poison would it take?
yes, exactly. I'm like, so you might want to be afraid to come home. I'm just kidding.
That's
So
funny.
yeah, so
I was trying to think. I guess one of the weirdest things that I have researched is I
the
had
chickens,
to.
isn't it?
No,
It's the
it's
chickens.
not.
It's
It's
tornadoes.
not the
What
chickens.
happens to
It
the
was.
chicken if you throw it in a tornado?
So my characters in Faith and Hope were doing an improv game at the camp that they
Sorry.
worked at, and I was going through the. Yeah, I know. So they had to come up with something that started with an X, and it had to be an animal. And did you know that there are like no animals that start with an X? So I ended up using like X-ray fish. That was
Is
the
that a
bet-
thing?
It is. It is a thing. You can. They're sort of translucent.
Oh.
And so you can can
Okay,
see
so-
their bones
Mhm.
on the
Never heard of
inside.
that.
Yeah,
I made
it's an X-ray beta, I think, and that was the best I could come up with because there are no animals with common names that start
With X.
with an X.
Why didn't you just change your letter?
Yeah.
Because I had to go in alphabetical order, and X was the next letter from, and I would have had to change like all of it, and so I was just too lazy, I guess. I don't know.
I think the weirdest thing right now on mine is there's a lot of information on mobsters and prohibition right now. And found out there is a mobster from our area and everything, so doing a lot of research on him and his allies and allies turned enemies and things like that is really kind of
It's really
kinda cool.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say that's really, that would be neat to read.
So, if you have any interesting research, if you
Yeah.
maybe you've read a book that sparked some research,
Oh,
or
that's
you're
good.
writing a book that you've had to research, or you've come across an interesting research method, be sure and share it in the comments below.
Or read a book that needed more research.
Yeah, I was gonna
That
say, maybe,
too, yes.
maybe it's not right.
Ooh.
Yes.
Hopefully none of
I
ours.
have
Yeah, hopefully
found
none of
that
ours.
before.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
But be sure and leave that in the comments for us. And don't forget your UN20 videos. And we will see you next time.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.